In this video, I'm going to be going over how to use our XYZ coding in microservice CAD. XYZ coding uses a prefix of X, Y, Z, or dot in front of a description in order to be recognized by our software. The X stands for a curve, the Y stands for a side shot, the Z stands for a straight line, and the dot closes a figure. Here in this example, I have a building over here, some parking lot lines, and a gutter line. Notice how some of these descriptions have X or Z, or these ones have Y, and this one over here has a dot. So in this case, I'm just going to go start with the gutter line and just work our way around. So first off, we're going to go to our Traverse AutoMap library. Notice how my descriptions don't have the XYZ coding. This is normal and this is how it should be, because if you did, and when you process the XYZ coding, you would run into some errors. So in this case, even though I have several gutter shots, and when they were in the field they were taken with either X gutter shots or Z gutter shots, in my AutoMap library I have to make sure I have just the one gutter shot. So if I were to edit this right here, we can just take a look at some of the settings that I have. I've created a new layer called Surfaces, made it continuous, and added a color. Also added the plotted description of gutter. And over down here, I have found 3D connections and polylines. Now the 2D and 3D connections is not necessary, as when we do the XYZ coding, it'll prompt you to select if you want 3D or 2D, which will override the selection. So I can close that. And now what I can do is just process a range. So in the picture before you, you can see our colleague out there taking some gutter shots, and he's taking from point 2 to 4, and he's only using the Z coding. So for this, I'm just going to show you an example of how to do a straight line. So back here in microservice CAD, I have my AutoMap open, and I'm just going to do process range. Here now it's prompting me to type in the point range. I'm just going to type in 2.4. Press enter. And now you have the XYZ connection method. Here is that override option I spoke of earlier, where it shows 3D or 2D lines. And there's also a skip XYZ method, but that won't be relevant for what we're doing. So I'm going to select 3D lines. And now it gives you an option to blank description codes. What this will do is remove the XYZ coding, so that way it'll match within the AutoMap library. So in this case, all my descriptions have ZGut. They'll all be turned into just gut. But I'm just going over some examples now, so I won't be linking them just quite yet. Or select no. And now the AutoMap library shows up again. Just close that. So now if I zoom into my drawing, notice how it's used the gutter line, and it created a straight line through points 2, 3, and 4. Next up, we're going to be doing a curve, and that's going to be using our X coding. In the picture you see before you, you see our colleague is taking some shots around the curve. And notice how he also started from the Z description at point 4, and then he started working with the X coding all the way around until point 9. So for this, now back in microservice CAD, I'm just going to open up the AutoMap library again. I'm going to process a range. In this case, I'm going to do from 4 9. Press enter. Again, the option to do 3D or 2D lines. In this case, we're always going to be working 3D. And while we're doing this examples, I'm not going to be blinking them. Now that that's done, I can close this. And now if you look at our drawing here, you can see how it drew a curve around those points. And it also drew a curve from 5 to 4, even though 4 had a Z description. Next up, we're going to finish up our gutter line. So our colleague went out there and just took another straight shot at point 10. So now, back in microservice CAD, it's going to open up AutoMap library, process range, and it's just going to be 9.10. Press enter, 3D lines, and say no to blinking. Now I can close that. And notice how it drew a straight line from points 9 to 10. So now that has all my gutter shots in there, and with all the line work. Next up, we're going to be working onto some parking lines. In the picture before you, you see how our colleague out there is just taking some shots along some parking stall lines, which we've highlighted with yellow. And what we're going to be doing is using our Z coding to mark the back line there across each of the parking stalls, and our Y coding for each side shot along each parking line. So back in Microsurvey CAD here, we have our drawing with our Y codes from points 14, 16, 18, and 20, and our Z codes for points 13, 15, 17, and 19. So once we process these codes, the impaired numbers will be all connected together, while the paired numbers will not, because they'll be connected to each corresponding Z code. Let's get on the example so you can see what's going on. So we're going to go to AutoMap Library, Process Range, and we're going to type in the range from 13 dot dot 20. I'm going to press enter, and we're going to be doing 3D lines. I'm not going to be blinking them. Now I can close this. Notice how all the Z coding lines were connected together, while the Y codings were not. And the order our colleague did this was, according to the pictures you see before you, he started from point 13 and took a Z shot on that PL line. Then he moved on to point 14 and took a Y shot. Afterwards, he moved on to point 15 and took a Z shot. Then moved on to point 16 and took a Y shot. And he did this all the way until point 20. And that's how you use the Y coding. Now, we're going to move on to using our dot coding, which is the last one. Here, we have a building with all the corners, and we have some Z shots for straight lines. Over here, we have some X shots because we have a curve. And over here on this corner, we have a dot line. What this is going to do is close the figure. So, we've taken shots starting from point 50, went all the way around, and finished at 57 without taking another shot on 50 to close it. But because we put a dot, it's going to close the figure from the start. So I'm going to open up the AutoMap library. I'm going to do a process range, and I'm going to do 50 dot dot 57. Press enter. Do 3D lines again, and we're not blinking them. You can close that. And notice how it closed the figure from 57 to 50. So this is all 4 different types of the XYZ coding, but we did this by doing process range, which is not necessary. If we want, we can do this all at once. So what I'm going to do is just close this drawing without saving and opening it up again. And what we're going to do is process everything at once. I'll just open up my project manager here, open up that same drawing. Close the general configuration menu. And now I have my drawing here. So what I'm going to do is go to my AutoMap library and process all connections. You can also do this by going to AutoMap here and selecting Connect Points by XYZ. This time we're going to do 3D lines. And here we're going to blank the descriptions. So now this is really important to notice is that we had to make sure that we're using X, Y, and Z in the code descriptions, but not in the AutoMap library. The library just has the default description used on each one. In this case, we're going to say yes. And now it's created all the line work, and it's removed the XYZ coding. So if you notice here, there's no Z or X's on the buildings, nor are the dots there. For our PL lines, the Y and the Z are gone. And for our gutter curve here, all the Z and X descriptions are gone. So now we're just left with the main description, which was what was in the AutoMap library and what we had after the XYZ coding. And that is how we use XYZ coding in Microsurvey CAD.